Matt Patricia's defensive brilliance left critics quiet as Ohio State toppled Texas.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. Visit the FanDuel app today to start planning your future bets now. During today's show, we will discuss what we learned about Ohio State's D-line depth in the win over Texas, as well as a few players that stepped up in their new roles. But first, Matt Patricia knew going into the game against Texas, there were a lot of people that had already said he won't get the job done in Columbus. He was a guy that did a lot of great things in the NFL, but some are saying he is not a good coach because of the 3 years he was the head coach in Detroit. Let's not do that. Don't be the kind of person, because if you were that person before, you got enough in one game in college for Matt Patricia to realize this man is a genius when it comes to putting a game plan together to stop the opposing offense. And Sarkisian and Arch Manning and everybody else on Texas's offense did not know what was coming next with Matt Patricia calling the shots. It's the same thing in the NFL. Patricia found ways to slow down or confuse even the best of the best in the National Football League. So why would you think anything different than him doing that in college? Yeah, they're college players. It's a little bit different than the NFL. That's true. But one thing remains the same. Matt Patricia is a defensive genius. He is a mastermind, and that showed up in a big way in Ohio State's 14-7 win over Texas. And trust me, I am a person documented here on this show all offseason that has believed in Matt Patricia. I didn't want to buy into the things, what people were saying about him from when he was the head coach of the Detroit Lions. Also, side note, a lot of people don't do well when they're the head coach of the Detroit Lions. So it's not a Matt Patricia thing. Maybe it's something going on with their franchise. I know they've had success lately, but prior to that, they didn't do a lot of winning. Well, Matt Patricia, and he was in New England, he found ways to confuse some of the best quarterbacks in the league, like Peyton Manning. Interesting that he just confused Arch, and before that, he confused his uncle over and over and over. And Peyton Manning did not like going up against the Patriots 3-4 defense. It was one of those things that he could never master. He always struggled with it. Yeah, he eventually beat the Patriots a few times in the latter part of his tenure with the Indianapolis Colts, but a lot of the time, it was Patricia and Manning, and Patricia got the better of the Colts quarterback. And I just think moving forward this year, you're going to get more of this kind of Matt Patricia on every single Saturday. Grambling State in Ohio, they're not going to provide much of a master test like Texas did, but you're still going to find Matt Patricia push the right buttons, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, over and over and over. Why? Because Matt Patricia knows how to get his defense on the field, get them off the field quickly so the offense can go back on the field and score. And from the odd fronts to the even fronts and the unpredictability from the pre-snap read to the post-snap verification, but post-snap verification for Arch Manning wasn't there because he was trying to verify what he saw pre-snap, but post-snap was a completely different picture. That's hats off to not only Matt Patricia coaching up on Saturday, but really the preparation of every single player and assistant coach on that side of the ball. And also, something I heard during his post-game presser that was a little eye-opener that I hadn't really thought about. With it being his first time coaching at Ohio State, really in college in general, it's a whole lot different than in the NFL when it comes to sideline communication. In college, you have a lot more guys on the sideline. It's a lot more chaotic than it is in the NFL. In the NFL, you may have 40 players on the sideline, maybe a little bit less than 40. Coaching staff is pretty big, but it's not as tight. There's not as much commotion on the NFL sideline versus that in college. Also, he didn't really get time in a preseason game or a scrimmage against another team to get his own communication going. And the nuts and bolts of down-to-down operation or series-to-series operation, he didn't get that time to nail that down. He had to do that during the game against the number one team in the country and homie knocked it out of the park. I mean, hats off to Matt Patricia. He has been smiling ear to ear since he got to Columbus, Ohio. And he could see Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks, who we will talk about later on in the show. He gets to see those guys every single day, and he can say, well, I could tell them certain things. I don't need to go the extra mile because they're crazy talented. No, he's going the extra mile every single day. Now, I did not see the pregame show before TCU and North Carolina on Monday night, but I saw a tweet that had a quote from Teddy Bruschi, who was on that pregame show, where he was talking about some of the things Patricia was doing on Saturday were things they did in the NFL in New England, and how Teddy Bruschi knew how to counter what Patricia was doing. I saw Kyle Van Noy also talk about some things that Patricia did that were from the 2016 Super Bowl and the game in 2017 as well. I mean, football is football, yes. There are going to be a lot of new tricks and a lot of different looks, but football is football. Also, coaches don't really try to reinvent the wheel. Some of them do the same thing over and over and over again. And so while Patricia is doing things that he's done previously, Sark is also doing things that he has done previously. And I think that played into why the defense was so successful over the weekend, because Patricia not only had training camp to prepare for this game, homie had months. He literally had months. Yeah, spring ball, they're preparing for the upcoming season, but Patricia is preparing for Texas. And I know in the summer they got the summer workouts, but Patricia is working on Texas. I understand that when you have things in training camp and players checking into a hotel, those things are great. But let's remember, they're still preparing for Texas. And if this is the game plan you get when you have months to prepare for Texas, I'm here for it. Now, I'm curious to see what happens. I still think he will do very well to knock it out of the park, but I'm curious to see how creative the game plans are, not just for Grambling State and Ohio, because that could be very vanilla spring ball type of stuff, more so for Grambling State. I think Ohio is a different test. I know it's a different test than Grambling State's going to be, but I don't think you're going to bring out all of your weapons, all of the tricks in your bag for Grambling State or Ohio. You have to get a little bit different, a little more creative. For Washington, they have some really good players on offense, but then also Illinois and Wisconsin and Minnesota as well. Now you're going to have something special for Penn State, something uber special for Michigan, because y'all know it's time to end that losing streak. But Patricia is ready for the job. I haven't heard anybody criticize Matt Patricia since that game. Maybe you have, and if you have, that's okay. That's the things you've heard. That's the things you've seen on the internet. But me, myself, and I haven't heard anything. I haven't read anything. None of that. Why? Because I think the Boo Birds are silent. I think they have realized that they have nothing to say, because Matt Patricia knew, hey, in this look, let's go ahead in the odd man front and then change it a little bit later once we get set. We're going to even front here. Oh, how about we overload right, simulate a blitz, drop two guys back, fake a third guy, then have him go into blitz. Ooh, Arvell Reese gets a sack. Oh, how about we just disguise coverages all day long so neither Arch nor Sark know what's coming next? You know, it's one thing when Arch can't figure it out. It's another when the head coach, who is a phenomenal offensive mind, is also getting stumped. He can't pass the test. Why? Because Matt Patricia is a mastermind. He is a wizard. And it's fun to see what he's going to put together in his lab with Ohio State's players. Just as Patricia knocked it out of the park, there are some guys that are stepping up into starting roles that also knocked it out of the park in Ohio State's win over Texas. This episode is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5. Once again, that is SHCollege, the number 5, for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode is also brought to you by Rougiette Ready. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Thank you all for tapping and Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. One thing we know about Matt Patricia in his debut as Ohio State's defensive coordinator is he found a way to unleash a lot of guys on the field. And I'm starting to laugh as I think about how much fun it was to watch these guys play, but also how confused Sark may have been thinking about Arvell Reese and Jermaine Matthews Jr. and Caleb Downs and Keanu Jackson Jr. and Caden Curry and Bo Atkinson and all the guys that Ohio State had to throw at Arch Manning. I mean, it's insane to think about guys like Bo Atkinson that didn't even start. Well, it's pivotal in the win over the weekend, or a guy like a Will Smith Jr. or a Caden Curry and Caden McDonald. That duo of Curry and McDonald, that duo was pivotal to stopping Arch Manning on 4th and goal to force the ball out of Texas's hands to get a turnover on downs. That was very big. And I think, to me, when it comes to this defense, there are going to be guys that shine against Texas. There will be times where that player shines in every game, but there may be a guy here or there that shines next week, then the week after, and then the game against Washington and Illinois. And you may get different guys here or there because Patricia realizes this game might be for one guy. The next game might be for somebody else. And that's just a mark of a really good defensive coordinator realizing y'all all are set free. But sometimes a certain player is going to be a bigger part of the game plan than he is in the previous week. And to me, I think about Ohio State's defense. I mean, Arvell Reese. Oh, my goodness, man. Hello to being one of the best linebackers at Ohio State over the past few years. And I know it's only one game. He's only been a starter at Ohio State for 1 week. But my goodness, it sure seems like Ohio State might have one of the best linebacker duos in the entire country. I mean, Sonny Styles was on Bruce Feldman's freak list for a reason. Now, he's not just on the freak list because he's a freakishly athletic guy. He's also a really good linebacker. He also is wearing the block O, so that adds to how good he is as a player, as a person. But I think Arvell Reese, at the end of the day, has a chance to be better than Sonny Styles. And that's not a knock against Styles. It's more lifting up Arvell Reese. And I often call Caleb Downs the ultimate Swiss Army knife. I literally had a call from my brother after the game, actually after the live show after the game. And my brother, one of the first things he asked was, what position does number 2 play? I said safety. He's like, because he lined up on the line. I was like, yeah, he kind of does whatever he wants to do. He lines up all over the place. His instincts are stupidly great. And that's a thing that I think a lot of people are going to think about when it comes to Caleb Downs. He literally lined up on the line. I think the very next play, he lined up at deep safety. There aren't many guys in the history of football that can do that. In college. Now, the NFL, you may get a guy here or there that decides to move around like that. But even in the NFL, it's rare. In college, it's rarer because most guys don't have instincts. You probably will not find a guy that's about 6 foot, 6'1", 205 pounds that is willing to line up on the line across some guys that might outweigh him by 150 pounds and say, let's go to war, big dog. Let's get this thing done. You might have a guy that has the mindset or the willingness to do that. But Caleb Downs does. Also, Arvell Reese, though, his athleticism, his physical play showed up all game long. Hats off to the secondary, BIA for a reason. Last year's secondary was great. And I don't use that word loosely. They were literally great. All 5 of them worked as one to slow down every single offense. Now, they weren't perfect, but they were great. This year's has an opportunity to be better because to me, I think your corner duo of Matthews Jr. and Igbenogson will be better than last year's corner duo of Denzel Burke and Igbenogson. Burke last year was at times a liability. He was not himself. Now, he was himself. He just didn't play the way that people expected him to play. And it was not fun to watch that at all at times. It was kind of rough on our eyeballs because that was not the Denzel Burke many of us thought was going to play last year, at least the way that he played. In the secondary, the safety spots, it'll be hard to top Downs and Ransom from a year ago. I'm not going to try to lie about it. It'll be hard. But McClain and Downs together, I think that duo might not be as great, but will keep the standard pretty high. And then Lorenzo Styles Jr., I don't know if he can match Jordan Hancock's production or importance for the defense, but he's going to be pretty good this year too. Almost kind of the guy that's going to go under the radar, won't be talked about a lot, will be very pivotal for Ohio State's defense to hit on all cylinders, similar to Jordan Hancock a year ago. That's Lorenzo Styles Jr. this year. I think this secondary can be better than last year's secondary because you're literally going to have a couple guys, Igbenogson and Matthews Jr., who are probably going to be at worst day 2 picks. If they play their hearts out and keep getting better, one of the two might be a first-round pick. Now, I'm not going to say both. I'm just saying might. I'm not here to put things set in stone and put it down on paper and pen. I'm not doing that. But I do see a scenario where Downs, top 10 or top 5 pick, you have Igbenogson and Matthews Jr. at worst day 2 picks. That's wild. That is better than last year already. At linebacker, I could easily see Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese being at worst day 2 picks. I think Reese at his best is a first-round pick. At his best. And we haven't seen him do it consistently, but if he plays like he did against Texas all season long, you're looking at a guy that will jump up draft boards and could potentially be a first-round pick. And then up front, we're going to talk a lot about the defensive line in the very next segment because up front, what we expected was Ohio State to maybe play 6 to 7 guys. They played more than that. And the way that Matt Patricia utilized them and weaponized them at times was a lot of fun to watch. From the 3-down look to the 4-down look to the odd front to the even front to the multiple rushman packages that he pulled out of his back pocket. It was just one of those things where we knew Bo Atkinson could play inside the 3-tech if he needed to or play at the end. One thing we didn't discuss, which is shame on me, shame on me for this one, was Caden Curry potentially playing nose. He played nose a lot in high school. That was one of the things, and I want to say it was his biggest game in the regular season, either his junior or senior year. He was on the field, and I believe he was playing nose tackle and ended up getting a rush on Danny O'Neal, who had, I believe, committed to Colorado, decommitted and went to Fresno State. Getting a sack on Danny O'Neal, who's a really good high school quarterback. But Caden Curry eluded the center, got him out the way, and pursued the quarterback for a quarterback sack to seal the deal for his high school team. Now, when Caden Curry came in Ohio State, people are thinking, oh, maybe you would be a D tackle, and that didn't register in my head based off the way that I saw him play. But we know he can do it. And so him playing nose with his quickness and even being a little bit undersized, so the quickness gives him a massive advantage. That's a huge thing in a rushman package when you have guys that are 260 or under, but are little Swiss Army knives that can play multiple positions. That's going to be a headache. Now, I don't know how often that's going to happen because Texas was a rare season opening game. What we saw on Saturday might not be used again until Washington, or might not be used again until Ohio State plays Penn State. Why? Because some of those looks might be things Patricia wants to show once and then might not show again for a really long time, or will just have different wrinkles for that same thing. Ohio State's defense had a lot of new players step up into starting roles. Arvell Reese, Jermaine Matthews Jr. being a couple of them. Matthews Jr. got that pick, got your boy up off his seat because that was a lot of fun to watch. It was a lot of fun to watch Ohio State's defensive line and the depth that they developed throughout the offseason. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Y'all, that's so good I gotta say it again right now. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by using FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. So one of the big questions a lot of people had heading to the season was about the depth on the defensive line. And that's one thing we talked about this offseason more than normal because Ryan Day made it very, very clear there were some areas that they needed to add depth and cultivate depth throughout the offseason. On the edges, it was pretty easy. Caden Curry, Keanu Jackson Jr. were the two guys that were going to start. Bo Atkinson and CJ Hicks were going to be the first two defensive ends off the bench. And then the thought was maybe Logan George could play, but there was nothing set in stone to saying Logan George would be coming from the FCS level to be a backup, be the fourth or fifth guy off the bench in his first year in Columbus, especially in game one. The question mark was on the defensive line. You had Caden McDonald and Edric Houston were the starters. That was expected. Will Smith Jr.'s name came up during Big Ten Media Days, and then he played a lot, the third most snaps among all defensive tackles. Tavon Malone Jr. Was one of the guys we highlighted here on this show in regards to one of the guys that hadn't been talked about a lot, but probably will play quite a bit. And then Jarquez Carter came up, and I think one of the pressers, last couple of pressers before Ohio State's game against Texas. Jason Moore was a guy that I kind of expected to play at some point, but he's dealing with an injury. I didn't think Ohio State will play 5 D tackles in this game. No, I didn't at all. I thought it would be more of a game plan that Ohio State utilized against Notre Dame in 2022, where you only played 3 D tackles. They didn't, and that was it. Michael Hall Jr., Tyleek Williams, and I want to say the other was Ty Hamilton, and that was it. That was all you played. Jack Sawyer and Toy Maloau, those were the two defensive ends, played the bulk of the snaps. I didn't think they were only going to use 2D ends the entire time. I had a great feeling it was going to be 4. But for Ohio State to play 9 defensive linemen in their first game of the year, that's wild. Especially when you think about they lost their entire starting defensive line from a year ago. You have one guy in CJ Hicks moving positions from playing outside backer to edge. You have an incoming guy that's a transfer from North Carolina in Bo Atkinson. And then you have guys that really hadn't played at all previously, not significant playing time in Will Smith Jr., Tavon Malone Jr., and Jarquez Carter. Jarquez Carter's new. He just got to school. He's also one of three freshmen to play over the weekend. Devin Sanchez played, and Nate Roberts played as well. So Nate Roberts was in on the 4th and goal touchdown run by CJ Donaldson. And I want to say Devin Sanchez got in on the second series that Ohio State played. So defensive series. So hats off to the freshman getting in this kind of moment. True freshman, that is. It's unexpected, but Ohio State accomplished a goal this offseason. While it was a tough goal, and while it was one that people didn't expect them to do in the ways that they did, they accomplished a goal of getting depth. And as I think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk more about Grambling State on Thursday, get more into their season, what they did a week ago, some of the storylines surrounding the team heading to the game. But one thing about Ohio State in this game, guys like Will Smith Jr., Tyrone Malone Jr., and Jarquez Carter are going to play a lot. They should play a lot. There is no reason why Ohio State should not score less than 50 points to Grambling State. No reason at all. No, it could be 50 to something at halftime. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I think there will be a level of a conservative game plan once again, just because you don't need to be opening up the entire playbook or even a quarter of it against Grambling State. It will be a conservative game plan for the offense. I still see a scenario where that conservative game plan will allow the RPO game to utilize between Sand and the other guys on the outside, and that could lead to touchdown here, touchdown here. Ohio State's up 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. Second quarter begins. Ohio State gets a turnover that results in a touchdown, and it's 28-0. And Grambling State's like, oh, can we get to halftime when the real show starts? So I see a great scenario for Will Smith Jr., Tyrone Malone Jr., Jarquez Carter to play a lot, to get a lot of reps this upcoming weekend. Same on defense. You might not see Caden Curry and really in any of the top four a lot. Caden Curry, Bo Atkinson, CJ Hicks, and Keanu Jackson Jr. Jackson Jr. went out, I believe, early in the third quarter. Was not a disclose, like they didn't say what the injury was. It could be concussion protocol, which that maybe you want to sit him out this weekend because you don't really need him. But maybe you want to let him play to get more game reps in. That's up to the coaching staff and the medical team at Ohio State to decide what the best move is for K-Jack. I think this D-line is going to be good. Now, I've heard people make some big, bold statements about Ohio State's defense saying, well, this defense is going to be better than last year's. I won't say it is. I will say it can be. That's a big, bold statement too, but I'm not going to say definitively they're going to be better than 2024 because last year's defense was really, 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 really good. But also, I think they're really good individually. They're great collectively. But I think Matt Patricia's mastermind is going to make them better. He's also going to help them prepare for the National Football League. Because some of the things that Ohio State did on Saturday, those are things you see on Sundays. In this upcoming season, I think there's NFL football on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday and Monday. I believe Friday's game's on YouTube, which is a new one for me. I didn't know YouTube was trying to get in to the broadcasting of football games. But watch and see the different looks, the different fronts, where the safeties line up, where the linebackers are, the types of different movements that happen, and see if in trying to compare some things that Ohio State did over the weekend to some things you do in the NFL. Now, I'm not saying these guys are pros right now. I'm definitely not saying that, but being able to gain some valuable experience, learning different concepts that you're going to use in the NFL, that will make you more desirable by NFL teams. So when the combine comes around, I believe Downs is going to be there, and Sonny Styles is going to be there, and Igvinosa and maybe Matthews Jr. is going to be there as well. And you realize these are not only really good football players, they have really good football minds, and they attribute a lot of that growth that they have in their football IQ to Matt Patricia, because I think Patricia, while he may only be at Ohio State for 1 year, he doesn't seem like a guy that's going to be there, that's thinking about leaving anytime soon. The money is right. Ohio State's going to pay the man top dollar. And if he keeps performing like he did this past weekend, helping these young guys get acclimated and prepared for a moment like this, y'all better watch out. Now, the one thing to watch about Patricia, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again before we close up shop. He is not going to have all summer and all spring and in the fall to prepare for a game. So maybe when it comes to Big Ten play, from Washington to Illinois to Minnesota to Wisconsin to an off week to Penn State, maybe in that period you get to figure out more about Matt Patricia and his mindset going from week to week to week. That's going to be more telling about what Ohio State's going to do in November. I think the defense is going to be elite no matter what, but knowing how Patricia is going to game plan is only going to be figured out by how he game plans from week to week to week. I think he'll be fine. But if there's anything the Bluebirds might come out and say is, homie can't game plan week to week in college. He did it in the NFL, but these are college kids. They still got to go to class. He can't be that good. If somebody comes to you and starts talking bad about Matt Patricia, direct them into the way of watching the film for this past weekend and walk away. That's all you got to do, because that person will only be swayed by watching film. And if they can't watch the film and be swayed that way to believe in Matt Patricia, don't try and help them. I'm trying to be nice, but at some point, the nicest thing to do is just walk away and let them believe what they're going to believe. Thank y'all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Speaking of Ohio State's win over Texas and Matt Patricia's big moment and his big debut, Locked On is in the midst of another big moment because college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. We're out of here on a Tuesday. We'll see you next time.